throw your hands up in the sky. Gonna go for mine.
Thank you all so much for coming out tonight, and I'll share a little bit of background. Jamie talked about why he thought this song was cooler. I have a story behind this. Does anyone know who that is singing the song? It's Kanye West. And the reason why I picked the song, one, because the good life, I sincerely am living the good life right now. I love what I do. But also, not only do I share the same birthday with Kanye West, we are the same age. And so it's one of those, now I say that is the only thing I have in common with Kanye West, I promise. I think when I said earlier, someone thought I was going to come on stage and interrupt the other presentations, but no, I'm not going to do that. But it is truly an honor to be up here and share the stage with Jamie, Kimball, Rick, and Rebecca, talking about how we are impacting different segments of our community. And I love the idea of game changers, but I also like to talk about taking risks, because I think that anybody has the capacity to change the game. You really do. But the question is, are you willing to take risks associated with that to get to that place where you need to be? And for me to first talk about Northeast Denver Leadership Week, I need you to take a journey with me. And so to give you a little bit of background on me, like most people who live in Colorado, I'm not from here. I moved here in 2006, originally from Missouri, and it's important to note that I moved here in 2006. And I was a West Point graduate, served almost 7 years in the military, 2 deployments during that time. I deployed to Kosovo, deployed to Iraq, got out of the military, and moved here. And I'll share a little story with you because I think it's fitting now why I moved to Denver. I was working for United Airlines, and as I was going through the interview process, they asked the question of, you get the choice of the 5 hubs. And so I was really torn between Chicago and Denver, and I was just having a dialogue with someone, and they asked me a question, do you like cold weather? And I don't, even being from Kansas City, and they said, well, pick Denver because it's never cold in Denver. Now, I told you I moved here in 2006, so does anyone remember the winter of 2006? And we think about the weather today, I really hate being lied to. But anyway, so I moved here in 2006, and for the first time as I'm working in the private sector, and I don't know if anyone has ever felt this, I felt unfulfilled. And I really think we all have a purpose in life, and for the first time when I was working, something wasn't right. And I changed jobs in 2008, and still something didn't feel right. It's like there was something nagging inside of me that just wasn't there when I was in the military. And I was working my regular 9-to-5 job, but I found myself doing a lot of extracurricular activities. When I bought my house in Stapleton, I joined the Registered Neighborhood Organization. I became the outreach chair. My church is in Montbello. I taught a financial literacy course that I facilitated year after year. For a semester, I tutored Montbello high school students, and then it dawned on me, I had this epiphany that my purpose was service. And that's when I realized as I was working my job I liked, but I loved what I was doing in my extracurricular activities. So this was right around 2009, 2010. I had this realization, it's like, how can I find a way that I can just serve full time? And I will share with you, when you find your real purpose and you're trying to find that path to get there, things sort of align for you. Because this just happened to be during this time when I'm trying to figure this out, sort things through, and somebody mentioned, well, have you heard of Leadership Denver? Well, I had, and this was in the summer of 2010, and like, well, why don't you try applying? Now, they warned me, though. They said, you know, a lot of people, when you try to apply to Leadership Denver, it takes 1 or 2 times to get in. And so it just happened I had a 2-week window to apply to get into Leadership Denver for the class of LD11. So I applied and I got in. And it's funny, you go through Leadership Denver and everyone says the adage, best class ever, and I say that about LD11, the only difference is it's true. But when you're talking about this, I talk about taking the risk. And so we had this first meeting where you're meeting with all these remarkable people, and they were saying, what do you do? What do you want to do? And I didn't think about it. I just said it, I want to run for office. And it's interesting because for you to be able to take a risk, you got to speak it. Because you know the adage, if you don't write it down, it's not a goal, it's just a dream. And you have to be able to speak that. And the thing about it is, if you want to be a game changer, you want to change the game, you need to say something that's so audacious, that's so ridiculous, people are going to look at you and say, you want to do what? Because if you just say, I want to go run a quarter mile, I'm like, all right. But I want to run for city council. You want to do what? I mean, if you want to change the game, you need to say something that's out there that make people think, oh my goodness, this is pretty big. And it just so happens I talk about my classmates because the reality is they are a key reason why I'm here. I met a friend of mine, Brian, after I said that. He heard about it. He's like, okay, let's go grab a coffee. So this is in 2010. And I'll paraphrase the conversation, but the gist of it is, so what have you done to run for city council? And let me give you some background for those of you that aren't familiar with Denver City Council. City and County of Denver is about 600,000 people. 13 people serve on Denver City Council. I don't even know what that percentage is. There's some minute percentage. 4-year terms. And if you think about some of our previous elected officials, council members, they have this long history of all the things that they've done prior to being on city council. A lot of them had been city council aides. A lot of them had been community leaders. A lot of them were born and raised in the cities that they're running for. So when I was asked this question, like, what have you done to be able to run for city council? Without even blinking, I smiled and I said, I vote. And to me, I thought that was a great answer because that's the most important thing I think you can do politically. And so we start to have this conversation. How old are you? I was 33. When did you move here? Well, are you from here? Nope, I'm not from here. When did you move here? 2006. This is in 2010. And who do you know, who are you connected with politically? All right, let's just back it up. And then he stops everything and says, why do you want to run? I said, I want to serve. And he was looking at me and he realized I was serious. That's all I wanted to do. Because I knew I had this passion. I knew I had this within me, like this was my purpose. And I was committed to do this. And I talk about, this was during August of 2010, and how with Leadership Denver, you meet every Friday, the first Friday, as we're going through this process. Those Fridays for me were so important because this core group of people, I was surrounded by a group of remarkable people that were changing the game in their respective fields. And they kept pushing me and they kept encouraging me as I'm going along this journey because they saw how difficult this was. For those of you that are involved politically, if you haven't heard of Chris Herndon, that's all right. Nobody else had either when I was running for elected office. But every that first Friday, it's always that push. You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. Keep it up. Because it was difficult to raise money. It was difficult to find endorsements. I'm not married. And so I'm working my full-time job. And then I'm trying to find the energy and the strength to campaign on the weekends, knocking on doors, and making phone calls. And something happened right around the end of March of 2011. So May 3rd, 2011 is the campaign, is the election day. And so there are two of us that are running. So it's not, you don't have the issue of a runoff. May 3rd is game day. And so I'm working my full-time job, I'm campaigning, and I'm not doing either one of them well at all. Burning the candle at both ends. And I let my boss know in January that I was going to run, or before that, and they were very supportive. And then at the end of March, I went to my boss and I said, I need a leave of absence. I need this final month to just full board ahead and just see what happens. Win or lose, you get sworn in July. I promise I'll be back. And I just need this to make this work. And so my boss said, come and see me in a couple of days. So I'd mentioned going to West Point right out of high school, served for 7 years in the military. My first job, working at the airport, not a regular organization. So I go in and I see my boss that day, and he's in his office. And the reason I talk about that history, because I've not had a lot of familiarity with the private sector, I go in, it's my boss, and it's the HR manager. Now, for those of you who have never been in this circumstance, let me let you know, if you ever go into a meeting, it's your boss and it's the HR manager, it's not going to go how you think it's going to go. So I walk in there, and there's like the two of them sitting there, there's that lone empty seat. And so you go in there and you're sitting there, and I'm excited. And so I sit down with a grin on my face, and he tells me, Chris, we just want you to know your leave of absence is declined, and you're in jeopardy of losing your job. And the reality is true. I was not doing either one very well. And he says, I respect the fact that you really want to run, but this is big. So, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a week of vacation, clear your mind, and come back to work. So I get up, just dumbfounded and dejected. So I took that week of vacation and campaigned the entire week, just at the grind. And then I came back to work that next week, walked into my boss's office, and I quit without even thinking about it. Now, I can say this with a smile on my face now, but I mentioned the dog didn't work. So it was just me making this decision, but as I look back, the reality is it wasn't that difficult of a decision. Because I talked about when you realize what that void is, when you realize what your purpose is, you're going to do everything in your power to move you towards that purpose. And I have to admit the support that I had from the members of LD11, because after I quit that job, which was right at the beginning, right before I had LD that following Friday, I told the class that I quit. And I was amazed at the support that they had given me and saying, you're doing the right thing, continue to strive on. And it was that support and push towards the finish line that for me, that was what got me over there. And I remember that 7 p.m., May 3rd, where they show up those first scores for the election results, I was up 300 votes. And then every 90 minutes, that gap got larger and larger and larger. And I was just relieved to know that I was going to be the next elected representative on Denver City Council for District 11. And so it was just a rewarding feeling. And I talk about taking that risk, which you have to take on your own, but you're going to find yourself surrounded by people that are pushing you in the right direction, that you're really not taking that risk by yourself. And as you look back and you see this big forest, because if I had stopped and thought about all the challenges that I was going to have to run for city council, I might not have done it. But if you stop and look right in front of you and you see this tiny little step that you can take here, and then as you get in that step, there's another step you can take, that's when you know you're doing the right thing. And so the interesting part is you go through all this to get elected, and that's the easy part. Because remember, I said I wanted to serve. I didn't want to get elected. I wanted to serve. I love what I do. I joke that I don't consider this work. And because I get up every day, I love being a part of it, I love serving, but the beauty of city council, it affords you the opportunity to do other things that you're really passionate about. And one thing that I noticed as I was tutoring Montbello High School students, or as I'm talking to some people in far northeast Denver, is how unfamiliar they are with the rest of the city. And when I was in the military, my best friend and I, we talked about when we got out, we wanted to create a nonprofit that would bring back high school graduates from the districts that they went through school and talk to students about the opportunities that they have. And that was kind of the genesis of Northeast Denver Leadership Week, which we've now done in its 3rd year, and it's a 4-minute video that I want to show you, but it's about taking kids from Northeast Denver in my district and connecting them with civic and industry leaders so that they can see all the great opportunities that are available for them right here within the city and county of Denver. So we'll go ahead and show the video.
This is going to be a live action training ground today.
We all have something in common. We all want to be something. We all have dreams, and we all have goals and aspirations that we want to achieve.
And I'm pleased to be here today to welcome this group of students who are part of the Northeast Denver Leadership Program.
We have a phenomenal group of students. So I have 10 participating high schools in my district. I am on Denver City Council. I represent District 11, which is far northeast Denver.
What he's doing with you all in this leadership program is, to me, just absolutely phenomenal and groundbreaking in the city of Denver. No other elected official that I know of is doing what Councilman Herndon is doing.
There's nothing more powerful than smiling at somebody, telling them your name, and making eye contact.
When I got sworn in July of 2011, I had the idea right in my mind, and we just wanted to get it off the ground rolling. So that year we had a total of 9 students. I can say it has doubled year over year, and I look forward to keeping that trend going.
The main reason why I joined is because I'm not really sure what I want to be. You know, I'm kind of partially interested in medical fields, but since I'm not positive, this was going to be a great experience because I was going to be able to explore different options.
And students don't understand all the career opportunities that are right here within the city and county of Denver. So I wanted to take an opportunity to connect them to those leaders in various industries.
There are 2 projectors behind this screen, one for your left eye, one for your right.
There's some students who are looking at and feeling the bone in the leg.
But I also wanted to do is connect them with leaders who have the same backgrounds as them. I think a lot of times students see people that are successful and don't think they have the opportunity or the ability to reach that peak.
The best way to study for something is hands-on experience.
The first thing is always about where they come from. So we do Northeast Denver Days.
Right now we're in the locker room.
We're at Dick's Sporting Goods Park and we're doing a tour of the facility so that they can understand the careers they can do outside of just being a professional athlete for the Rapids.
So I welcome you all to City Hall.
We've actually got to talk to them and hear their story, how they came from where they came from, and how they got to be where they are today.
Wednesday is Downtown Denver Day. So much is going on within Downtown Denver.
The good thing about law is you can come from any background and be a great lawyer.
We're prepared to offer you $2 million.
$2 million.
Coming into the program, I really wanted to be a physicist and an experimental scientist, but now learning all these job opportunities and like being able to experience what other people do, I'm kind of leaning on I want to be a lawyer or I want to work in law enforcement.
23 and a half hours you're locked down in here.
Being a veteran, I'm a huge fan of our public servants, and so I wanted to have a safety day where we go police, fire, and sheriff.
The firemen are trying to put out a fire from a car, and they had to make sure they had to go through the right procedures to make sure it's completely out.
It was an amazing week full of adventure, fun.
It's really refreshing to see that growth in these students because I tell them the world is theirs and to take advantage of these opportunities, ask these questions, we're connecting them with all this contact information because a lot of people don't have this opportunity to be able to meet these people.
It's really amazing how he created this program for us and he wants to mold us into leaders, and I also think it's amazing how he enjoys doing this. And when I think of a leader, I think of him.
We were talking on Wednesday about their idea of what successful people are, and some of the students said, well, successful people grow up in this type of family that's very affluent or doesn't have these challenges. And I look at them and say, well, the reality is nobody can dictate your future.
And eventually I see myself in one of these positions, so I'm going to be very thankful.
This day of my whole entire life, of this the whole entire thing, was amazing. Thank you.
This has opened my eyes to see that if I work hard enough and I believe in myself, that I can be whatever I want to be no matter what it is.
Northeast Denver Leadership Week 2013!
And so I'd like to share with you 3 takeaways because we've now done this for 3 years. When we did it 2012, that fall, I had the opportunity, I ran into the principal at DSST and G Green Valley Ranch, and she came up to me and she said, I just want to tell you thank you. And I said, for what? And one of her students participated in that program in 2012, and she always described her as, this is a student that has the capacity and the ability, but for whatever reason isn't focused. And I was told she came back that fall focused, and the principal asked her, what changed? And she said, Northeast Denver Leadership Week, because I now know what I want to do, and I've had the opportunity to meet people that let me know that it's possible to get there. So that's one of the great things that I love about this program. And I have to give it up to a lot of the local businesses because this program is free for the students. It is no cost. And organizations like the P-Town Foundation, Comcast, Oakwood Homes, have given their finances to make sure that it stays that way. So I always want to thank them for that opportunity for businesses that want to participate and sponsor Northeast Denver Leadership Week, because that's something that we're always looking for. And the third point is, when I saw this video for the first time and I showed it to some people, they said, well, that's great. What are you going to do different next year? And I thought, the first thing I'm going to do is get a haircut, because I had no idea I had the Chia Pet look going. So from now on, whenever I know I have a speaking engagement the day before, I always get a haircut. So in conclusion, I'll just say this. In order to be a game changer, it's about taking risks. And as I said initially, everyone has that capacity to change the game. Are you just willing, the big question is, to take the risks that are needed to be that? And the reality is you're not going to have to take those risks alone. I think about this process of getting elected for Denver City Council, but I was never alone. I had some peers like John, Lori, Jeff, Brian, Bert, just to name a few of the people that were right there with me this entire journey, because I looked at them as game changers, and they were the ones that helped push me over the finish line so that I can be successful. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.